Hello and welcome to episode 96, Afghanistan's Crossroad, Navigating Taliban Rule, Neighbor Relations and Global Interest. So this episode is a continuation of episode 95, so I kindly request everyone to first listen to episode 95 so that you will very well connect with the conversation in episode 96. So yes, Sadiq, coming back to our conversation, we closed the episode 95 at Central Asia, and we'll now, take a much more broader look at this topic. So, after more than 3 years, the US and NATO withdrawal from Afghanistan, how is the country pursued by Western powers, and have any strategic interests shifted in the region from your perspective?
I don't think the strategic interests are shifted. I'm sure the Western countries are still interested in Afghanistan, very much interested in Afghanistan, because the world as it stands today, we're seeing a clear demarcation between countries that believe in democracy, that believe in the rule of law, that believe in the people's right to self-determination, the right to choose their own leaders and chart a path forward in leading their lives based on their own rules and regulations, something that they can easily update, something that they can easily change anytime that they want, that they would have access to technology and access to free media and access to resources and economies and systems that at the international level facilitates their rise, facilitates their development, and facilitate their well-being to live better, healthier, longer in this world, versus other groups of countries who, in the contrary, are dictators. They believe in dictatorial systems. They believe that the people do not have the right to, or they do not deserve the right to have the right to choose their leaders, to make rules and regulations and determine their own taxation, determine their own system of governance and how they want to live, what type of technology they should have access to, and all that. And these countries are increasingly becoming more discreet in their coordination and cooperation with each other around the world to undermine the first set of countries who are much larger and much more powerful and much more richer. And so these countries or these regimes that we can name in China, Russia's Putin, the mullahs in Iran, and elements in Pakistan have all joined hands together in undermining the democratic states around the world, the liberal order around the world. And they're doing it through various ways and means and mechanisms in a very concerted way, but in a very a decentralized fashion, but highly coordinated. Sometimes they do all of them together. They join hands together in statements against the West. They take a stance against the West at various platforms, whether it's the National Security Council or other international institutions. They try to challenge the West through various ways. But they also do other things, like they did them literally. They got engaged in Ukraine, and they have made the whole world to pay attention on Ukraine. And with the whole world paying attention on Ukraine, they unleashed Hamas to attack Israel and Middle East. And all of these countries, with all of their might and power and all of their intelligence institutions and entities and Five Eyes and all of them, they were all blinded and they could not predict and see what was happening in just a small portion of land in Palestine or Palestinian territories. And you saw what happened, the chaos and mayhem that it followed. And now you see the whole Middle East is engulfed in the battle between the West and all of these countries who are undermining the West's credibility and West's interest in that region by supporting all of these proxy groups and terrorist groups to attack them, to undermine their security and threaten them. So that's what happened in the Middle East. But before that, something else happened. And what happened was, in Afghanistan, the Taliban came back to power. And that was also part of a design, part of an operation, part of a strategy of these countries. And the strategy was basically physical, which was primarily aimed at zeroing the U.S. presence in Afghanistan and zeroing the presence of countries like India in Afghanistan. And at the same time, it was also psychologically and morally and emotionally. They created a regime in Afghanistan. Basically, through having this regime, they are aiming at discrediting and basically bringing down the credibility of all of the democratic and liberal states, because the way they did this is they created this regime which is very dangerous. It's a terrorist organization. There is ISIS-K and other elements, and so there is the Chinese involvement, there is the Russian involvement. They're actively involved. They're actively present. Their embassies are operational. They did not leave. Like few countries that they did not close their embassies when the Taliban came to power. It's very obvious. The Chinese embassy, the Russian embassy, the Iranian embassy, and the Pakistani embassy was the embassies that did not close their gates when the Taliban came to power, which indicated that they had assurances and guarantees from the Taliban that they would be secure. And naturally, they would be secure because they worked together with them to bring them back to power. And so that should have given an indication to other countries in the West that they should not trust the Taliban. But unfortunately, that sense of competition that is there with bureaucrats, with security officers, with diplomats and ambassadors, that, oh, that country has access, we don't have access, let's try to find access. And in this cycle of like a childish cycle of ego-based or ego-driven between the security officers and the diplomats and other countries, that they do not even coordinate on this side. Like India and US do not coordinate, France and UK do not coordinate, Canada and India definitely do not coordinate. So all of these countries, they do not coordinate even with each other when they're engaging with the Taliban. And so naturally they're being played by the other side. And so by engaging with this terrorist organization that has repressive policies against their own people, against the women, they're basically telling the world that these Western countries, these Western democracies that they talk about human rights, they talk about liberalism, they talk about dignity, they talk about justice, they're basically hypocrites. They're telling their own people that these states, India is a hypocrite, because how can a democracy, a largest democracy in the world, come and be on the same table with the Taliban, which does not believe any right whatsoever? Why would the Indian government engage such a group or send aid to that group or empower them? And if India does not believe in the same ideology, or India is not a similar does not have a similar governance, then what is India going to do about it? Why is India not doing anything about it? Why is this Western democracies are not doing anything to get rid of this cancer in that region? And not only they're not removing this cancer, that they are engaging with this cancer, they're talking with this cancer, and they're sending money to this cancer. And so naturally, this cancer will spread to those countries, and that is the intention of the axis of evil, to undermine the credibility and also security of these countries, because they're being blinded. The Daesh infiltrators, ISIS-K infiltrators are being sent, which is basically the Taliban, but their name is given ISIS-K, and they do all of these attacks, and then they say, oh, it was ISIS-K, and all of these Western countries. I mean, if they can look at it hard, they could look at it properly, they will understand. These attacks that are happening in India, they're all connected, and goes back to Pakistan and Afghanistan. They're not telling the people of India about it, but that's the truth. Since the Taliban came back to power, there are significant attacks in India, and it's all related and tied back to Afghanistan. So the truth needs to be told. The truth needs to be taken seriously, and they need to protect themselves and protect their dignity and protect their credibility by stopping their engagement with the Taliban. They have the interest, but they are diverted. Their attentions are diverted, and they're looking elsewhere, or they're closing their eyes, and they do not wish to see the truth that is happening right now in Afghanistan.
Interesting. And just to navigate on the China side, so China's Belt Road Initiative, also called as BRI, has the potential to reshape Afghanistan's infrastructure, because I think they have been dealing quite in this country. So how involved is Afghanistan is in the BRI, and what are the potential outcomes of deeper cooperation with China from the current
Yeah,
situation?
unfortunately, the Chinese are very interested towards Afghanistan. Of course, as I stated, one of their interests was to make sure the U.S. forces and the coalition forces come to zero in Afghanistan, that they should leave because they're, how could the Chinese allow one of the, like, Bagram airfield? It's a very strategic airfield in Afghanistan that was under control of the U.S. and coalition forces. That these forces should be based there. They have jets and their forces just just few kilometers away from the Chinese homeland, or the Russians and Iranians and others. So the Chinese, that's what they wanted, and that's what they got. They're also interested in Afghanistan's mineral resources, underground resources, which is a very rich. Afghanistan is a very rich country. There is a significant level of
Right.
materials and resources that are highly needed for any country to advance and prosper with all of their technological innovations. They need the resources that Afghanistan has, trillions of dollars worth of resources underground, and the Chinese have set their eyes on it. They have, as I stated, discreetly, they have reached some understanding with Russia's Putin. They have reached some understanding with elements in Pakistan and of course the Iranian government, that they would together make sure that all of these resources that they could extract and distribute it between themselves. They are already doing it. They are already trying to make individual deals on all of these resources, but I'm sure that they have bigger plans for the future once they make sure that the Taliban continue to stay in power, that their power is never been challenged, that it's if it gets recognized, then they will come together and formally basically distribute all of the resources that Afghanistan has underground between themselves, and through coordination and cooperation with each other, they will extract and export the resources from Afghanistan, and they will make sure that none of those resources reach to India or Western countries. That's for sure in this competition that they have. And the third aspect is, of course, the Belt and Road Initiative, that they always wanted to be Afghanistan to be involved, but that was not happening in the past because Afghanistan did not have a good experience with the Chinese investments that during the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, because it was unfair, and the way they were dictating terms was unilateral, and it was not up in the standards of international standards of fairness, and so that was not happening. But with the Taliban coming back in power, of course, the Chinese, since they control the Taliban through the Taliban leader's office, I think that's their hope, and that's why they're actively working at the regional level and international level at the UN and other places to make sure that any negative statements about the Taliban are subdued, making sure that any statements or sanctions against the Taliban are not implemented. And I'm sure they're going to stand against this recent movement among Friends of Afghanistan. There are more than 30 countries who have come together to take the Taliban to the International Court and to try them for crimes against humanity, for their gender apartheid. I'm sure the Chinese will also try to block that effort. And the holy objective that they have is to make sure that nothing happens to the Taliban regime, that they continue to stay in power. And with their continuation of staying in power as a theocratic extremist group, that they could open their gates and open their border, and they could have easy access to Afghanistan, and from Afghanistan they could easily connect to Iran, and they already have a good deal with Iranians. And so if they get connected through Iran or through Pakistan, through Afghanistan and Pakistan together to Iran and Central Asia, and so there's no limit to their expansion. They could easily reach to Saudi Arabia and other countries, and they are setting their eyes on those resources as well, and they will definitely make sure that the U.S. forces are ejected from those countries as well. And that's where they're moving at, is connecting themselves from land, from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Middle East, and all the way to Africa, and who knows, maybe Europe. That's what they're aiming at, and the Taliban are cooperating with it. And if the international community and liberal states do not stop this, there's no force to stop the Chinese expansion. They're benefiting from this chaotic world that they have created with their friends, and they're aiming at rising up all the way to Europe, and on the other side, of course, they will take on India, and I'm sure they will take on all of these small small countries in the neighborhood that they have issues with through the sea. But I don't think they will prioritize that side because they know the sensitivity of the U.S., they know the sensitivity of the Quad countries, and so they don't want to do it through that route, but they will do it through this side, and with undermining the credibility of the coalition forces and the U.S. forces and Indian government and Australian government and all of these democratic countries. By undermining their credibility, they're basically paving the way for those governments to be weak, and eventually having instability and insecurity in those countries as well. And so, with those countries being engulfed with terrorist activities, with insecurity, instability, and insurgency, I mean, nobody will be able to stop the Chinese then from taking Taiwan or other countries in the neighborhood.
Interesting. And I would say taking a little bit angle on the international organizations. So, what will do international organizations like the UN or other regional bodies such as Shanghai Cooperation Organization? Primarily, because there are several international organizations which keep on operating in such countries. So, how these organizations, both regional and the international ones, are playing role in basically shaping Afghanistan's future? Are I mean, like, firstly, I would like to ask: are they even operating in Afghanistan? Firstly, to do
Mhm.
any changes?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we can't say much about it because that's a Chinese agenda. That's a Chinese platform that was created. It's the same type of platform that the Soviet Union created during their Cold War with the West against the NATO. So the Chinese are hoping that maybe SCO could be turned into such a platform that they could challenge NATO, and so they, of course, they are not yet to that potential. They are not yet a platform of sorts to militarily be able to challenge these countries, but politically and through intelligence initiatives, they are cooperating with each other. They are bringing other countries in the fold, like India and others, just as a show that it is more of a regional framework, that they are accommodating other countries. But the truth of the matter is that it's not a regional initiative. It's primarily a Chinese initiative that they want to have a platform that they could use to challenge other countries, and they are making inroads in other institutions and trying to invest on BRICS, for example, as another platform that they're investing on to utilize it basically to challenge the West down the line politically at the international level. And so, yeah, they're not going to do anything about it. They are, of course, a very ineffective organization right now, but they're pursuing and following the same policy lines that the Chinese and the Russians have, and that's why we're not seeing anything or hearing anything from SCO towards the plight of the Afghan women through the loss of democracy and the loss of human rights in Afghanistan. But the United Nations, as a platform, has the standing among the world community to be able to have a positive impact, a positive influence in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, there is also two challenges. The first challenge is the same countries, the same group of countries, as I stated, the Russians, the Chinese, the Pakistanis, and Iranians, who have always taken hostage the processes of the United Nations to prevent a major coalition being built up against the Taliban, or a major initiative being taken into consideration by member states against the Taliban. And they have succeeded in that objective in the past 3 years. But recently, as I indicated earlier, that a group of countries have come together outside of the UN on their own initiatives. The countries like Australia, Canada, Germany, and Netherlands, that we truly appreciate and are grateful to these countries and their foreign ministers, who truly represent the interest of their countries as democratic countries, as countries who believe in the human rights and rule of law, that they are going to take the Taliban to court at the international level. And so hopefully initiatives outside of the UN will have a positive impact, because within the UN, politically, that group of countries, that axis of evil, is a stopping any initiative. That's one challenge. The other challenge is bureaucratic challenge the United Nations has. There's significant level of bureaucracy and offices and individuals who are involved in various branches and various organizations on political front and economic front, on aid front, and others who are engaged on Afghanistan without having a proper strategic direction on hand. They are basically engaging tactically and trying to just work in a way to continue their survival, to continue their operationalization. And their UN offices, I mean, imagine the Taliban made a rule that the United Nations offices cannot have female employees, and they went along with it. I mean, how could they do this? An entity, an organization at the international level that is fundamentally is supposed to be on the side of the human rights and freedom of the people, if they are not allowed to follow their own rules and regulations and guidelines that they can have women employees in a geography, then what's the reason for them to stay? What is the reason for them to continue to be operationalized? They're saying, "Oh, we are there for aid delivery. We're there for economic assistance. We're there for reporting from underground." But if you look at their reporting, it's all pro-Taliban. If you look at the aid delivery, it's all handed over to the Taliban and Taliban sympathizers. And if you look at their political activities, it's all promoting the Taliban, giving the stage for the Taliban. So I would say the bureaucratic corruption that is within the UN, or the bureaucratic ineffectiveness and incompetence that the UN officials have, it's beyond logic. It's really illogical and unreasonable when you look at this such an important organization. But when you look at their policy and activities and efforts with respect to Afghanistan, you would wonder if these people are even educated. Are they literate? Are they do know what they're doing? All of their work is counterproductive. And instead of protecting the people of Afghanistan, and instead of protecting the women of Afghanistan, instead of protecting the rights of the people, they are in bed and working closely with these terrorist, barbaric individuals, and providing them stages and providing them opportunities to speak. They just recently had a deliberation in Doha where they brought the Taliban representatives, but they did not even allow the women representative to attend. They did not allow the youth representative to attend, just because they just want to have a meeting. That's nonsense. They need to stop it. The UN has the capability to do something, but as I stated, politically their hands are tied. But even bureaucratically, they're very corrupt and incompetent, and they need to fix. I think it's time for the UN to be reformed. It's long overdue. It's been a while that the people of the world, member states, want the UN to be reformed. I think it's time. It's a very ineffective organization. If you look at it around the world, they're also in different places. They have not been able to deliver to the people of the world. They need to be fixed and become more streamlined. The nepotism and the corruption in terms of appointments that are happening in the UN organizations, that does not allow competent people from around the world to be part of the UN. That needs to be resolved. That needs to be fixed. If it's a entity that is serving humanity, they need to truly serve humanity, and they should not be a tool in the hands of axis of evil, or a tool in the hands of dictatorial governments and repressive governments, or terrorist governments.
Interesting. And looking forward, what are the key challenges and opportunities that Afghanistan faces under the current regime, and how it can balance between preserving sovereignty and engaging with the international community?
So unfortunately, with the Taliban in charge, Afghanistan does not have any hope. What you could project with the Taliban being in charge is, first of all, right now there is gender apartheid. That needs to be recognized by the people of the world. Anybody who has common sense, they should just look at this and see. They should know that this is gender apartheid. I mean, any official of any government, when they look at this, they should just imagine if somebody come and tell them that their daughters do not have the right to go to school, that they do not have the right to go to university or work, and if their wives are not allowed to get out of their houses, or they need to wear this type of clothing, or they're not even allowed to speak to the public, will they tolerate it? These presidents, these prime ministers, these foreign ministers, these ambassadors, these diplomats, these security officials, will they tolerate such an individual, such a group coming and dictating terms to them in their neighborhood? If they do not allow it, they should not allow it in Afghanistan. We are a world community. If we are the same
Yes.
community, we're the same world. We need to stop this. That's one thing. And the second thing is, of course, the Taliban have turned all of the schools into religious madrasas, and they're training suicide attackers and suicide bombers that they're gonna export to the world. And so that's what's gonna happen if they're not removed from power. And the whole country is basically going to be turned into a black hole that is filled with mafia, filled with drug traffickers, and filled with terrorists that is going to undermine the whole security of the region and around the world. But moving down the line, the people of Afghanistan are working together right now in a consultative process, in a coordinated fashion. The people of Afghanistan within the country, and particularly the people of Afghanistan outside of Afghanistan, and those who have freedom of maneuverability and freedom of movement, and countries that are much more friendly towards them, that allows them and gives them an opportunity for them to work together. Countries like the US, countries like Europe, countries like Australia, Canada, these countries allow Afghan diaspora to come together and organize and work with each other, and to talk about things and how they want to resolve the issue in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the countries in the region, most of them are in bed with the Chinese and Russians and Iranians and Pakistanis, and other countries like India. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what's up with them. Why are they scared, and why are they, despite the fact that they want to claim that they're regional power and they want to be a global power, they are operating as if they're really, really scared. And this is not done. This is not how you would conduct foreign policy, and shaming and embarrassing Indians around the world by engaging with this terrorist organization and appearing as hypocrites by cutting all of their ties from the Afghan women, from the Afghan youth, from all of the political leaders who considered India as their friend. They, instead of engaging them, they're engaging the Taliban. But the people are trying to see if they could work on a mechanism through which they can remove the Taliban from power, and that mechanism is a national uprising. Given the limitation in the region, given the limitation globally that the countries are not supporting us, then the people of Afghanistan will take the matters in their own hands. They will rise up by the millions, and they will take charge. They will get to it. They will take on the streets, and they will remove this regime from power, and will establish a people's government. Democracy will be back in Afghanistan, and then we will streamline our relationship with all of our friends and enemies then.
Interesting. And, I mean, there are several aspects that have actually popped up during this conversation, and I believe we can definitely create few more episodes on that, because this is not a topic that we can cover in just 2 or 3 episodes. But yeah, for now, I think we are reaching the end of the podcast, and this final question is not related to our topic, but this is more for the student, research scholars, anyone who is basically listening to this podcast and trying to make their way into this field of research. And I believe every individual who comes on board as a speaker on this podcast has some or the other anecdotes to offer to these people. So, from your experience in the sector of international relations and geopolitics, what message would you like to give to the researchers, students, or experts working in the geopolitics and international affairs domain, or the individuals or the organizations who are trying to make their way into this sector?
I would say, despite all of the talk and discussions, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of writing out there. I think we just need to be mindful of the fact that in this day and age, what we are seeing in 21st century, the demarcation between democratic countries and non-democratic or anti-democratic countries, is something that we all need to agree on. It's time that we agree on this framework. We should no longer allow this framework of thinking be undermined by those who call themselves pragmatic, by those who call themselves tactical engagement for national interest type of individuals, or operational level coordination for national interest. It's all counterproductive. It's all been counterproductive in the past. It's counterproductive in the future. We all need to come at the strategic level, and at the strategic level, look at the world and see which are the countries, which are the regimes, which are the governance structures that have the potential and have the capability that they could serve the whole world, that they're much more inclusive, that they're much more respectful of diversity, and believe in equality and believe in justice. All of those systems of governance and all of those systems of societal structures are the ones that we all need to be backing. And any society and any government and any ideology, any political party, any group, any individual who is having a very narrow perspective of the world, that a narrow perspective of national identity, or a narrow perspective of humanity, based on religion, based on caste, based on tribe, based on an ideology or a political party or affiliation or a language. We need to start isolating these individuals, because these are the people who have slowed down humanity's progress. These are the people who are all the main reasons for causes of corruption. These are the people who are the main causes of nepotism. These are the people who are the main causes of ineffective leadership around the world in the name of national interest, in the name of national identity, or the name of ethnic identity, or the name of provincial identity, or state identity, or whatever narrow identity that they have. So all of those countries and regions need to be identified, and then we need to start looking into finding solutions to remove those groups, those regimes from power, and opening up those societies and countries that they could be more accommodating and more receptive of other peoples, the same way that countries like in the United States, for example, is, or countries in Europe is, that they are accommodating of all types of identities and all types of religious people. Anybody can leave from anywhere of the world, and they can immigrate to these countries and have a good life and have an equal share in power, have an equal share to wealth, and equal share to opportunities. Any other country that is not like this, they need, for whatever reason that they are saying it's unjustified. We all need to open up. Everybody needs to be opened, and opportunities need to be shared with everybody, so that people can enjoy the freedom and security and stability wherever that is provided in the world. And if any regime and any government and any country does not accept it, or they, more than that, that they're not even accepting the country in Afghanistan or government in Afghanistan or Taliban, that they are forcing their own people, they are having extreme policies against their own people, or using violence against their people, or repressing their own people, or a particular segment of people in that countries, we should definitely take a stand. We need to have a stand. We cannot be neutral in this battle. We are all human beings, and we need to stand for the defense of humanity, for the defense of humanity's dignity, and for the defense of liberty and equality and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sadiq, for interesting insights, and I hope we record a few more such insightful episodes in the future. And we hope to see you around with more such updates in the next episode. Maybe we can try to cover more niche level topics on Afghanistan, because I think this is an interesting topic and it's quite broad. As I said, we can't cover everything in just 2 episodes. So yes, really hope in the future we record more such insightful episodes, but with a much more niche topics, which might give us a much more minute level perspectives of Afghanistan and surrounding politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omkar.